Brilliant. Great. I'm not going to go too long talking at you. And as I say, do interrupt if you've got any specific questions. That's absolutely fine. So can you see my screen okay? My nice bright orange picture? Yep. Great. So this is specifically here to talk about the Great Glen Energy Co-op Fund as it's just reopened for 2025. Co-op have a stake in the wind farm that's between Glenmorrison and Glengarry. And they're specifically interested in supporting environmental projects in that kind of the rural communities around about Loch Ness is the area of benefit for this fund. So kind of broader than just the immediate area, but still defined. So they've used community council boundaries. So I'm assuming that you guys are both in that patch. I think you are.
There's Lecker, yeah.
Yeah. Inverness West Community Council is part of the patch. So that includes the rural communities of Brechin and Dochgarach, for example. And it does just come into the kind of southwest corner of Inverness City as well. Groups who are based out with the area can apply as long as the projects themselves benefit people who do live within this specific patch. But you guys are locally based. That's all good. And as I say, the fund does have these quite specific themes, and in particular, the board are interested in supporting environmental projects. So anything that comes forward to the main grant should certainly have a kind of a fairly strong environmental focus. The other things they're interested in are education and equality. So projects which also have some kind of aspect of education and equality will kind of just make us for a stronger application. But environmental is kind of a key aspect of what they want to fund. So just some of the things that have been funded in the past. So the fund opened a couple of years ago. Initially, there was about £200,000 to distribute. So at that point, the maximum award was £20,000. For this coming year, there's about £100,000 available. So the awards are going to be slightly smaller. But in the previous round, just to give you some ideas, there was a community garden funded in West Glenmorrison that took a kind of a fairly derelict area of former playground and turned it into a nice space, kind of focusing on improving biodiversity locally, as well as creating a kind of social and educational space for the community. So that was fully funded by the Great Glen Fund. We also funded half a dozen e-bikes for the Loch Ness Hub in Drumnadrochit. So that's adding to their fleet to create mountain e-bikes to hire out to visitors to encourage folk to leave the car behind and explore the area by bike, and also been available for local people to kind of trial and test to encourage more e-bike use. The final photograph there, it's a very exciting photograph. It's quite an exciting project. This is the Boleskine House Foundation, who are doing a lot of really interesting work to decarbonise a historical and quite kind of significant old building. And we helped with funding towards the solar panels for that project. They are very keen to kind of share what they've learned, because I say it's an old listed building, so lots and lots of challenges in terms of making that more energy efficient. So they're doing quite a lot of work to share what they've done and what they've learned. So again, a nice kind of strong project in terms of the fund there. But lots of other things have been supported. Small grants are a little bit more flexible, I guess, in their remit. And I believe the childcare centre did get some support with equipment a year or so ago. So a range of different things have been funded to date. So just some kind of general information about the fund, some sort of specific points, and as well as sort of general top tips for good funding applications. So there's two kind of tiers to the fund. The small grant scheme is up to 2,500, and the main grants are now capped at £10,000. So they used to be bigger, but they're that's been reduced just so that more groups can be supported. Foundation Scotland is a grant-making charity, so we do have some kind of standard eligibility criteria that apply, as well as the issue of geography and the sort of types of project. You don't have to be a charity to apply, but you should have some kind of charitable purpose, so community benefits, not for profit, essentially. You need to be a constituted group. You need to have a set of accounts that you produce every year. You need to have your own bank account. And if you're a group that's involved with children or other vulnerable people, we would expect to see some pretty robust safeguarding as well. So, for your sorts of groups, that would be relevant. All that information is on our website, and I say if you've got any questions, you can always come back to me just to check things over. And yeah, previous awardees can reapply, so that's not an issue there. The fund is now open. The deadline for main grants will be the 12th of December, and that's going to be for a decision in mid-February. The Great Glen board will make decisions on this first new round. Small grants have a quicker turnaround, so you get a decision. You can apply anytime for those and get a decision within 4 weeks. So we'll try and make that kind of a much simpler, quicker process. Just kind of generally, I guess, for this fund, but kind of for all others, really encourage folk to speak to us, come along to an event, but definitely make contact with any kind of fund support before you apply. There's so many types of funds out there, so I'm sure you're already aware or becoming aware. And if there's ever an email address or phone number connected to that fund, I would always speak to them and just, make contact. Find out before you go to too much trouble if it is the kind of fund for you. Make sure that you're not going to waste your time applying for something that's just not relevant. So yeah, always get in touch if there's somebody to speak to. There's lots of information in terms of guidance on our website, and it's worth having a good kind of look through that too before you start, just to make sure that you are eligible and you've got the kind of information that's going to be required for the application. The applications with us are online, and there is a link to the set of questions as well that you're going to be asked, so you can find out that in advance too, and again, just get prepared. And also the online system, you can start your application and save it and come back to it. So it should be hopefully a good process to get through as well. But yeah, lots of information, and do get in touch. I'll share these slides after tonight, and just want to share some kind of contact details. I'm not sure this will be too relevant for you guys, but if you're doing a building project, we do look for some kind of independent advice on what you're planning to do. You can get free energy assessments from Business Energy Scotland, which will look at your kind of whole premises and kind of work out what the most helpful, efficient, useful things would be in terms of the measures worth taking. And they'll also direct you to any other kind of local council or local government, national government support that might be available. So that's a good starting point. Local Energy Scotland also provide great advice as well as funding for community building energy projects. So that's a kind of good point of contact. And for general advice and funding and governance, we'd also recommend a Highland TSI. Lots of good support there. And obviously, I normally would have the Climate Hub on this slide too, but they're going to talk to you as well and give their details. So certainly recommend contacting them as well. There's lots of support organisations, and also the ability to find other groups and projects who've done similar things can be really helpful in terms of getting advice from people who've done the same thing before. Excuse me. So in terms of the process, as I say, for the small grants, we try and make it it's a shorter form, it's a shorter system generally. We may phone if we need any other information, if anything's not clear in your application, but otherwise it'll just be a very quick turnaround and a quick decision. For the larger grants, we do look at things in a bit more detail, and we pretty much always arrange a phone call with an applicant just to find out a bit more about the project and get all the information that we need to then present that information to the board so they can make a decision. It's meant to be a helpful thing. We're not putting up barriers and obstacles, but just get a kind of fuller picture. Not everybody's very confident filling in forms that we find, but most people are perfectly able to talk about the project. So it's a really good way to learn a lot more and give people every chance to really give us all the information that we might need. There's no appeal process for decisions, but we will give feedback if applications are not successful. And as I say, the decisions for this coming round will be made by the Great Glen board in February next year. So what we're kind of looking at when we are assessing a project, there's the initial thing is, do you fit those fund priorities? Are you in the area? Do you fit the fund priorities? That's the kind of the immediate things that we would check. We look at the organisation eligibility, and particularly we're looking at the kind of capacity of your organisation to be able to deliver the project that they want to deliver. We're keen to see what difference the project's going to make, what are the impacts of the funding, who's going to benefit, and for that, we do kind of look at what why you're doing the project, what's the kind of need that you've identified or the opportunity that's come up that you want to address. And then we look at the kind of nuts and bolts of the project planning. And as I say, this is really meant to be helpful. Sometimes it's a wee bit developmental, but it's definitely not trying to catch anybody out. But in terms of us distributing community funds, we want to be assured that the project does stand up. So who owns the land for the play park, who's responsible for maintenance, insurance, do you need any kinds of permissions? We would kind of go through some fairly standard questions, and it should all be proportionate to the level of request that you're making as well. We do look for quotes, and we're quite tight on that. Within Foundation Scotland, we generally pay grant awards in advance based on quotes, as opposed to paying in arrears based on invoices. So again, that should make it easier for groups to manage things, but it does mean that we need to be very clear what your costs are, before an award is made. If there's anything you haven't gathered, it's still good to get your application in on time, and we can pick up anything that's missing, and we can get quotes at a later date if necessary. We're also very aware that it can be really hard to get quotes in our rural communities. So there's as I say, we're not trying to put barriers up, but there's that issue of the costs is really important to be kind of realistic and accurate with what you need, because that will again strengthen the application if that's very robust. And when you're fortunate enough to get an award, there's a standard terms and conditions to accept. We usually look at a time period of 12 months for a project to be delivered, but again, there's flexibility there. Often people will need longer. Things like planning and building warrants and other match funding and all that can take longer. So there's flexibility. We'd expect publicity about the Great Glen Fund and any promotion that you're doing about your project. And it may be that an award's made with conditions attached. So that might be because you're waiting for planning or you're waiting for additional quotes to come in. So you might get an award with certain conditions. There's also an expectation that you'll report back about what you've done and where the money's gone. And there may be occasions where we look for kind of more in-depth follow-up to produce case studies and that sort of thing from local groups. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I was just going to flag up another fund which covers parts of the Great Glen area. If you're in the Glengarry and Fort Augustus and Glenmorrison Community Council, which I think you guys are not, if I'm getting my community council areas right. There's obviously quite a number of renewable funds generally in your patch, but this is another one that we administer, the Binyon Community Fund. It's a larger scale than the Great Glen Fund. There's about 500,000 per year to distribute, and they are keen on doing kind of long-term and supporting quite strategic projects with that sort of scale of funding. So for groups in that area as well, worth having a look at what's available there too. I will share the slides after tonight for anybody who's interested in for those contact details. I'm going to stop sharing just now. It's been a bit of a whirlwind tour, but if anyone's got any specific questions for me, we can answer them just now, and then if not, we'll move on to Katie's presentation. Anything anybody wants to ask just now? Or should we crack on with the next? Okay, cool. Katie,
I'll share the slides and
Okay.
Katie, you can talk. Let's see.
Amazing, thank you. Just wait for the slides to come up so I don't overtake.
Can you all see that?
Essentially now oh yeah,
Yes.
everyone see? Brilliant. Okay, I'll just take a couple of minutes then to do a bit of an introduction to the hub, who we are, what we do, where we operate, that sort of thing. So obviously I'm Katie, I'm your West Coast representative, and then I've got Aisling on a call as well, who's East Coast. The hub, I'll go on to the next page, please, Aisling, thank you. I think the next page is our area, and then there's this one. Okay, so the hub's actually quite big. There's 22 climate hubs across Scotland. We're one of them, and we're the largest one by geography. We cover the Highlands as well as Orkney and Shetland. So we do have quite a few development officers across that region, one in Highlands, one in Orkney, one in Shetland, one in Caithness and Sutherland, myself on the West Coast. And then as well as Aisling, we've got someone else based in Inverness who also covers Nairn, Bednoch, Strathspey. And I think that's it, with a bit of a hub in Inverness and also up in Thurso. What do we do? The hub, that's the next page. Yeah, great. So the vision of the hub is for communities across the Highlands and Islands to be bold, collaborative and resilient in creating climate-friendly projects and initiatives which address the needs of the communities. We do this through support directly from your development officers, collaboration in terms of forming networks, education and training. So next year we're going to be doing a climate literacy training program where your development officers can come into the communities and work in community halls or buildings or with different groups to give climate literacy training. There's other educational opportunities too that I'll come on to later. Celebrating community climate action, capacity building. If you need some support with the project, we can help with design and development. Giving a voice to your communities. So this is how we interact with the government. We do fill in a lot of consultations and surveys based on what we find through conversations with our members and feed that back to the government relatively regularly. And then funding support, which I'll come onto a bit more later. These are some examples of how not every project sounds like a climate action project, but most of them you can embed sustainability into. So I was thinking a little bit initially about how you're saying the play park might be the focus of your project, but actually safety in terms of access. And if that's footpaths, then you're talking about active travel routes and sustainability in terms of getting more people on bikes and footpaths, which opens up the whole sustainable travel and active travel section. So these other examples are themes that come out where you find that climate action is actually addressing an existing need in a community. So with the mental health and well-being, you often have community growing projects come out of that, active travel or improved access to green spaces. Food security is one that comes up quite a lot. We've got local food networks, again, community growing projects and community larders and pantries. Sometimes you'll find communities popping up some sort of shed and they'll work with local supermarkets and have a cross between a food bank but also somewhere to reduce waste. So they'll be taking waste from local shops and making it available to everyone. Fuel security. So that's energy efficiency projects, and this can either be, domestically, so supporting the people in your community with their household efficiency, or it could be if you've got a community hall or any other kind of community-owned building that you want to have a look at. Renewable energy, in terms of either you want to have your own renewable energy, hydro, solar, wind, or you've got developers in the area that you want to work with to get community benefits, which seems quite relevant to this meeting. Renewable heating, and then finally another theme, connected and equitable. So this is where you see quite a lot of the circular economy principles coming in, and you have people setting up repair cafes, bike sheds, tool libraries, that sort of thing. What kind of support can you expect? So there's a few different things. So here we've got sustainable spaces. So this is sort of a package of help that you can have from a local development officer. And what we'll do is if you've got a sustainable space, it could be a facility, it could be an outdoor space. And often you want to get funding to make it more, say it's a community hall and you want it to be more energy efficient, you might end up applying for the Highlands and Islands Enterprise Green Grant. In order to get that grant, what your organization needs is a sustainability policy. So we'll give you a template for a sustainability policy and we'll work through it to make sure that it's tailored to your organization and work with you on an action plan to make sure you hit all the targets in that policy. So this is for any community that's got a space that they want a policy for and an action plan to cover it. Networking. So within our Climate Hub, I think we have I can't remember, but I think it's around 300 members. I'll have to confirm, but we'll do online networking sessions around certain themes. So this could be repair, green space, marine litter, and bring everyone together to do peer-to-peer learning. And then in-person regional networking. We'll have events every now and then to bring all our members together. Ad hoc support can be things like supporting with the local place plan, supporting with a climate action plan, community action plan, reviewing a funding bid. So if you've put in a bid to either a fund that we've signposted to you or another one that's climate orientated and you want a spare pair of eyes on it, we can review those bids before you put them through and also offer letters of support. So you could get a letter of support on behalf of the Climate Hub to support your funding, which will sometimes help you get it. And then, like I said earlier, project development and delivery. Our fund. So we have a climate action fund that's open now. It's up to £1,000 for a climate action project. And like I said before, if you're not certain whether or not it would qualify, do get in touch because there's almost always a sustainability element to anything you want to do. It's open on a rolling monthly basis. So you can apply up until, I think it's February that we're closing it this year. And usually it's a bit smaller than this. Usually this fund is around £500 and it's likely it will go back down next year. But earlier this year, the Hub was distributing a different fund, which means
so the communities have got access to £1,000 at the moment instead of 500. So don't get some getting a bids in. Sustainable spaces again. Like I said, that doesn't directly have funding with it. But if you have actions that come out of your policy, you can apply to the Climate Action Fund to fund it. Or it's very helpful for securing something like a Green Grant Fund from HA. And then you've got your Food Hygiene Heroes course there. So the Climate Hub have paid for it. I see it sounds funny. Is that me?
Sorry, I think your sound's gone a bit funny, Katie. Is that happening for everyone else?
Yeah, it's a bit distorted that last wee bit.
Okay, no worries. I could jump on and just recap quickly.
Yeah, maybe jump in.
Okay. So yeah, to recap, we've got the Climate Action Fund, which is open up to £1,000. It's open now till February next year, at the end of February next year. We've also, as we mentioned, got the Sustainable Spaces. So that's open to expressions of interest. And if you just come to us, share your space and we'll see where we can go from there. We also do level 2 food hygiene training, which is really helpful for anyone who's wanting to open something like a community larder to get all your volunteers through that. And what we'll do is we'll pay for them to go through to make it more accessible for you guys. Let me just... And then last but not least, membership. If you guys aren't a member already, we'd really encourage you to join. It gives you access to the funding that we've just mentioned, but you also get access to things like our peer-to-peer learning opportunities, access to our newsletter and monthly funding finder, which is funding tailored to the Highlands and Islands. And you'll just be able to join our wee community that we've got of groups working on climate action together. This is Katie's project that she's running at the moment. It's an example of one of the member learning opportunities that we do. It's a marine litter fortnight with 6 different events, 1 in person, the rest are online, so there's opportunities for everyone. And we're looking at how to deal with plastic waste. So obviously you guys aren't near the coast, but there'll be still litter issues. So if it's something that you're interested in, you can sign up using the QR code, or it's on our Eventbrite as well. Just look up Highlands and Islands Climate Hub and Marine Litter Fortnight and all the events will pop up. So that's something exciting coming up very soon. And yeah, last but not least, you've got our contact details here. I think both of you here are in my regional area, but honestly, we're not fussy. You can just email any of us and the right person will get to you. And we're very much here to support. So with something like this, even if you're not coming to us for funding, we're here to help with that project development and delivery at any stage if you fit at all within the climate sphere. So that I will stop sharing. And again, I'll share the slides afterwards so you can follow up on all of that.
That's great. Thanks very much. A good double act there. I'm going to stop the recording for the presentation part, and then we've got time for some Q&A. I'll not need to share that with everybody else.